Hey everyone, this is Doomhammer with the draft episode. Now, I think if you are new to this series or these videos, you might not know what the hell's going on. So I'll try to give you a little explanation. So this is a 32-team franchise I started 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, in Madden 20, where I did a 32-team franchise where I play all offense. So I set my defensive controller on the D lineman, and I play all offense. And I've been playing every single game for what has been 12 NFL seasons. And so this is the 12th off season. I started in 2002, 2003 season, which was the David Carr, Joey Harrington rookie season, and we are all the way now to the 2014 NFL Draft. So all the offseason moves, all of the trades, Super Bowl championships, drafts have been done by me, creating an alternate reality of the NFL. It is a slow grind, but one that is very rewarding, especially here in year 12. So hopefully that explains a little bit. So everything is all jumbled, mixed up. Yes, I have drafted some players to the same team they were drafted on before, if it makes sense. But that's why you might be wondering, well, why is Russell Wilson a Cowboy? And why is Carson Palmer a backup in Oakland or wherever it might be? That's because it's been an entirely different alternate reality. You can check other videos to get more information about that. But we are here now in the 2014 NFL Draft, and the number one overall pick is held by the Cincinnati Bengals after having an abysmal season. And let's go ahead and get to their first pick, the first overall selection. And with the number one overall selection in the draft, it's a no-brainer. It's Jadeveon Clowney. He is the best player here in the NFL Draft, and the Bengals are going to select him. I think the Bengals, they do need a quarterback. That was on the table for them, but and they probably will try to take a stab at a quarterback sometime in this draft. Maybe they'll consider a trade up. Maybe they'll draft in a later round. But if you have the option to pick Jadeveon Clowney, that's the one you should probably go with. And the Cincinnati Bengals, under new head coach Mike Zimmer, take the pass rusher. Next up, we have the Baltimore Ravens, who also had a very difficult season, and let's go ahead and see who they select. And with the second overall selection, the Baltimore Ravens select pass rusher Khalil Mack. So yes, the Ravens are also a team that could use a quarterback. They do have Colin Kaepernick at the moment. He hasn't been very consistent for them as a stable quarterback, but instead of going with Bortles or Manziel or Bridgewater, it was the Ravens who decided that they want to get back to being that dynamic defense. They were the number 4th ranked defense in the league. They've got Gerard Mayo, Aldon Smith, Jarrell Casey, Marcus Spears, Ziggy Ansah, defensive backs like Vontae Davis, Captain Munnerlyn, Bernard Pollard, Asa Jackson. But given the choice of players at this moment, we definitely look at Khalil Mack as a very solid Baltimore Ravens selection. But now we've got the Kansas City Chiefs on the clock, and they went 5-12. They also have a new head coach in Raheem Morris, and they have a lot of holes that need to be filled in this team. So let's see who they select. And with the third pick in the 2014 NFL Draft, the Kansas City Chiefs select Blake Bortles, quarterback. So we see here the first quarterback off the board, and he's going to Kansas City. They pass up on Johnny Manziel. They pass up on some other options here in this early first round, but quarterback was definitely a need. They drafted Brandon Whedon 2 years ago with Tony Sparano, and that did not work out very well for them. So now they're trying the quarterback position again. They move on from Matt Castle. They move on from Kevin O'Connell, who was a pretty good journeyman quarterback. But right now they only have Tyler Bray on the roster, and they need some quarterbacks in the room, and that's going to be Blake Bortles. But now we're going to move to the New Orleans Saints with the 4th overall selection. A lot of gaps and needs on this team. Last year they did draft Geno Smith, who sat behind Byron Leftwich for a decent part of the season. And so let's go ahead and see who the Kansas City Chiefs select. With the 4th overall selection in this draft, the New Orleans Saints select the best wide receiver in the draft. We see Sammy Watkins out of Clemson. So again, there's a lot of things that need to happen for this Saints team to be competitive. They are coached by Pat Shurmur, so, Browns and Giants legend. And instead of going defense and filling some of those gaps, they decide that they want to get an explosive playmaker like Sammy Watkins to be paired with Geno Smith. But now we'll move on to the Seattle Seahawks, who had a huge splash in free agency this offseason, landing the likes of Matthew Stafford, along with a few other big names. Let's see how they decide to take their draft with the number 5 overall selection. And here we go with the pick. Picking number 5, the Seattle Seahawks select another wide receiver off the board, Mike Evans. So this is big for the Seattle Seahawks. They are able to get a huge playmaker for Matthew Stafford. So I'm sure Matthew Stafford is excited. They've got from Josh Morgan, Chad Jackson, Ricardo Lockett. They do sign Demaryius Thomas, so that's a good addition for them here. But they need some playmakers, and they just picked one up big time here with Mike Evans. Now, on the clock is the Cleveland Browns, and the Browns have been absolutely being reformed. They still have quarterback Terrell Pryor, who is a former Rookie of the Year. They need receivers. They need cornerbacks. They need a lot of different positions, as Coach Mike Pettin, the new coach of the Browns, is going to make his selection now. And now the Cleveland Browns, with their 6th overall selection, they decide to take cornerback Justin Gilbert. So Browns make the same real-life decision as they do in this franchise as they did in real life. They right now have Buster Screen, Terrell Brown, and Robert McClain at cornerback, so they do need to pick up some defensive backs. And he was there. He was rated the top cornerback at the time. We do know that history would say otherwise, but again, we don't know what the future holds. We're just going off of what we know now. So Justin Gilbert is going to be a Cleveland Brown. Next up, we have the St. Louis Rams. So again, they are another team that they've got some talent. They've got Andrew Luck. They've got, running back. They lost Tim Hightower. Now they bring in Ben Tate. They've got Michael Crabtree, Hakeem Nicks, Marvin Jones. But let's see who they decide to take with the 7th overall pick. And with the 7th overall selection, the St. Louis Rams select cornerback Kyle Fuller. So here they decide to take who probably is one of the better cornerbacks compared to Justin Gilbert. But 2 cornerbacks off the board following each other immediately. We see Kyle Fuller helping out this Rams defense. They do have Brandon Flowers, Chris Culliver. They have Rashad Johnson with Tashawn Gibson at free safety. Nate Ebner at strong safety. They got need some help there in the defensive backfield. So Kyle Fuller is the man. And then we have the New York Giants on the clock. Again, this was a very disappointing season. They do plan to start Matt Barkley, the sophomore quarterback, after they moved on from Carson Palmer. So I don't expect a quarterback to be selected here, but we might see them try to get some weapons that he can throw to. They do have Jimmy Graham at tight end. They have Brian Quick, Niles Paul, Josh Boyce. Let's see if they decide to give him another weapon on offense. And here we go with the 8th overall pick. The New York Giants select Odell Beckham Jr., wide receiver. I think this was sort of an easy pick. I mean, they did need a weapon, and Odell Beckham Jr. was sitting right there at number 8. So if you are a Giants fan, you are welcome as we add Odell Beckham Jr. to the New York Giants. Now, only if Matt Barkley can throw him the ball. We shall see if he has a similar career like he did in real life, but I do expect him to be a very solid pick. And yeah, we've got 3 wide receivers in the top 10 so far, and we'll check out and see what Green Bay decides to do. They also are in desperate need for a quarterback. They were able to bring in Brock Osweiler via trade. They did sign Eli Manning, who, again, has been more journeyman. He never won 2 Super Bowls like he did in real life, so he's not viewed as the same caliber quarterback. Again, he's had more of a mediocre career. He had a great run with the Kansas City Chiefs, but I don't think that's a reason why Green Bay shouldn't try to take a quarterback here. They also look at wide receiver. They got Randall Cobb, Julian Edelman. They do have one of the best defenses in talent. They're top 8 in the league in defense. But this is a team that has Von Miller, former first-round pick. They've got DeMarcus Ware, who's 89 overall. They have Sean Merriman. They have Vince Wilfork. They have a pretty solid group here. So we'll see what they decide with this Jeep Christ run Green Bay Packers squad. Let's get to the pick. And for some reason, Madden started having some weird glitchy stuff, so I wasn't able to record this clip. But they decided to take Aaron Donald, the defensive tackle. So I think this is a pick that really reinforces that Green Bay, in a division where they sent 3 playoff teams, the Lions, who won the division and made the NFC Championship in a quite surprising manner, the Minnesota Vikings, who have the reigning league MVP in RG3, and they have the Chicago Bears, who have consistently been a playoff contender under head coach Bruce Arians. They want to be a defense that challenges that mindset, and so there we have the Packers selecting Aaron Donald instead. And so they don't go offense, they go defense. And now we'll move to the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts have a coach change. They went from Bill Cowher. Now they have Norv Turner. The quarterback right now is expected to be Kirk Cousins. They lost like Reggie Wayne because of retirement, so they could use some offensive weapons. They did have Cordero Patterson, first-round pick last year. Their defense has some bright spots, but let's see who they decide to take with this 10th overall selection. And so we have the Indianapolis Colts selecting offensive guard Zach Martin. Now, I think this is a great pick for them. I mean, they do have some offensive line talent. I mean, they have Jeremy Zuta, they've got Evan Britton, they've got a few others, but they have a gap at guard, and Zach Martin will fill that. And so the Colts are able to pick up a major centerpiece of their offensive line, someone who should be an anchor for many, many years to come. Now, for whatever reason, Madden stopped having the player walk across the stage. I was going to have the video for every person walking across the stage. I actually exited out of Madden, loaded back before the draft started, and then redid the draft to get the people walking across the stage, and at the 11th pick, it just stopped doing it for me. So we get to do it from this view. Now we got the Buffalo Bills on the clock, and they are looking at trying to really touch up their offense here, trying to get their defense in a better position. They have E.J. Manuel, who's quarterback. They had Tim Tebow last year, so Manuel is going to get his first season as the starter in the league. They do have Jacoby Jones as a playmaker, but as for they have Jake Long, Richie Incognito on offense. Defense, they've got Justin Durant, they've got Andre Levy, Whitney Mercilus, Albert Haynes, Kareem Jackson, Tracy Porter. So let's see who they come up with this next pick. And they decide to go with defensive end Coney Ealy. So the interesting choice here, my thoughts are they wanted to get a pass rusher. They wanted to get someone younger because they have like Shea McClellan, Albert Haynesworth, so some older talent. They're trying to get stronger defensive players, and Coney Ealy fits the mold. He's highly ranked in the draft. And again, as I say this, I don't really believe in the pick as much, but he is the pick that they're going with at this point. Buffalo going with Coney Ealy. And next up, we've got the Washington Commanders. And so they are moving on from Michael Vick. And he hit free agency. He's now a potential backup with the New Orleans Saints. He's working maybe behind Geno Smith. So they have a gap there at quarterback. They also have some gaps at wide receiver. They got Vincent Jackson, Brandon LaFell, and then a bunch of high 60s. They got Mike Goodson at running back. Their O-line is pretty mediocre. Their defense, they've got Dante Hightower, Antrell Roll. But with this pick, the Washington Commanders select Johnny Manziel. So to replace Mike Vick, we see the coaching staff here, which is Marty Morningway, who's the former Lions head coach. Then he was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles. The Eagles did so well in my franchise. He got another coaching job with the Commanders, and he is going to take this last stretch of his career here in Washington, and he's going to place his bet on Johnny Manziel. They did sign Trent Edwards, and Trent Edwards might actually be the starter week 1, just because Manziel is very low overall. I did tank him to like a 20 awareness or 40 awareness, something like that, because he did not take football seriously in real life. So we'll see how his career pans out here in this alternate reality. Then we got the Jacksonville Jaguars. So they actually outperformed than how I thought they'd perform. Colt McCoy got them an 8-9 season as the starting quarterback for them. They have many gaps. But let's see who they decide to take with this 13th overall pick. And with the 13th selection, the Jaguars select Greg Robinson. So the first offensive lineman off the board. They do have Matt Khalil, but they also need a right tackle. They got James Brewer, who's not bad, but let's just say in my league, I think it's kind of like a Madden league because offensive line are important, but there's not much difference between most of them. So that's why like someone like Greg Robinson, who was the second overall pick in real life, is now going 13. Like Joe Thomas fell to like the 8th pick or 7th pick. So it's kind of odd, but when I look at how many other players and needs there are, O-line's normally not up there. But Jacksonville, they work on their infrastructure. They have Mike Pouncey at center. They've got Larry Warford at left guard. He's only a 71 overall. They've got probably the best O-lineman is Kalichi Asemele, who's 81 overall guard. And they got Matt Khalil, who was a draft pick from the year before, and they go offensive tackle again to guard the other side. So we'll see if that's the right choice for the Jaguars. For all we know, they could be the powerhouse running offensive line in the league because of Khalil and Robinson. But now going to the other part of the AFC South, we've got the Houston Texans also going 8-9, 9th seed in the AFC conference. They decided to take, with the 14th overall pick, Taylor Lewan. So here we are again taking tackles. Now, they did have the signing of Jamal Brown, left tackle, 85 overall. But Jamal Brown is getting up there in age. He's 33 years old. What we saw with the San Francisco 49ers and the Oakland Raiders is that the Raiders have Donald Penn, who is much older. Right? Donald Penn, I believe, is 31 years old. But they drafted Teron Armstead, who's 23 years old, who's an 80 overall. Penn is 86 overall. And they are satisfied with right tackle with Ryan Beluga at 25 overall. They've got Marcus Cannon. So they traded away Donald Penn to the 49ers. So here we have the Texans. They kind of want to get that next era of offensive linemen off the ground. They have some age, and so someone like Taylor Lewan, who went to the Titans in real life, is a decent pick here because they can slide him over to guard if they want to get him in the action early, because they have Earl Watford at left guard, who could very well be replaced by Taylor Lewan this year, and then they move off of Jamal Brown, giving them some more cap space and a younger left tackle moving on in the future. But now we move on to the Patriots, who were 8-9. This was a really bad year for the New England Patriots. They do trade away Andre Johnson to the Cleveland Browns. So a 33-year-old wide receiver goes to Cleveland for a third-round pick. Yep, the Patriots just, fleeced them once again. They've got some gaps there on the offensive line. They have Lance Kendricks at tight end. They lost a lot of players because they're a very talented team and they ran out of cap space. So they're trying to rebuild a lot of their offense. And so let's see what they decide to go with. And with that 15th overall pick, the Patriots select Jake Matthews. So we have 3 offensive tackles going in 3 straight picks. I think this is a good pick for them because they are still working with Zach Strief, who's their current left tackle, 30 years old. Left guard, they're working with Chance Warmack, who is a first round pick last year, 77 overall, 22-year-old star dev. Center is just a 63 overall. They've got Marshall Yanda, who's their superstar guard, who's right guard, 89 overall. And then they have no right tackle. So they need offensive line, and they get that with Jake Matthews. Now we move over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who were like the number one team in the league up until they weren't, and then they lost their playoff spot. They went 9-8 this year. With this 16th overall pick, smack dab in the middle of the league, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Anthony Barr, linebacker. So we get one of the better linebackers in the league. I mean, Khalil Mack might move his way into an outside linebacker role in Baltimore. But when we look at some of the defensive players that could be added, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're working with like Bruce Davis, 73 overall, 29-year-old. They've got Derek Johnson, a 31-year-old, 89 overall, kind of the anchor of their defense. They've got Geno Hayes, 79 overall. But really looking at that right outside linebacker spot where we wanted to really give Tampa Bay more firepower. They do have Mark Anderson, who's been a top pass rusher in the league. Kawan Short. They have like Tyson Aluwalu, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, Luis Delma, Mark Barron, Ladarius Webb, who was defensive player of the year. So they got a lot of good options on defense, and then adding Anthony Barr just goes a little bit further. Then we've got the Dallas Cowboys. Now this is a team that they finally broke the 7-10 conundrum they've been in. They were like 7-10 for like 5 years in a row. Then went 6-11. But Mike Shanahan got us to 9-8. They do have the Eagles. They have the Commanders, and they have the Giants. All three strong teams. So they have a very difficult division. However, they are moving in position where they could overstep the Eagles because they have Russell Wilson. They have Adrian Peterson. They've got Kendall Wright, Derek Hagan. They just signed Larry Fitzgerald, one of the best wide receivers in the league. They still have Jason Witten. They've got Dwayne Brown at left tackle. They've got Mike Breezel. They signed Alex Smith, an 82 overall. Alex Mack, center. They have Manny Ramirez. They've got Ben Ijalana. So they have a decent offensive line. And then they've got various like Eric Berry, Eric Weddle, Calais Campbell, Charles Johnson. So some Barkevius Mingo, who is the defensive, if I can talk right, the defensive rookie of the year. So let's see where the Dallas Cowboys go with. And with that 17th pick, they draft tight end Eric Ebron. Now, this is another weapon for Russell Wilson. Jason Witten is 32 years old. Their next tight end is James Casey, who is 29 years old. So now they're getting the young, big, physical tight end. Perfect pick there for the Dallas Cowboys, adding something that they desperately need to improve upon. So we will see how Eric Ebron kind of transitions more so in the offense, more so than Jason Witten. Then we've got the Joe Flacco-led Carolina Panthers. It is the Panthers and the Patriots, I believe, are the only teams who still have the starting head coach. So there's John Fox with the Panthers, and there are the Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick with the New England Patriots, and Andy Reid. Andy Reid is also still there with the Philadelphia Eagles. So other than those three teams, every team has had a different head coach. Now, of course, the Carolina Panthers, they've got a handful of needs. They normally have a pretty solid running back duo. They always had Larry Johnson and Lorenzo Booker, Ben Tate. They've always had a running back that they could run with two. Now they only have Christine Michael because Ben Tate left. Lorenzo Booker retired. They have Ty Hilton, Torrey Smith. Offensive line is actually pretty weak. They probably need to work on that. They used to be one of the best defensive teams in the league. They still have a small kind of resemblance of their defense, but they've kind of fallen over the past few seasons. So, I mean, like, they've got Devin McCourty, Sam Shields, Daniel Manning, Michael Huff, Julius Peppers, Pat Sims, Carlos Dunlap, Monte Teo, but they have some work to do to really get back to the number one team again. The Falcons are now the new team that is number one in the defense. So very difficult NFC South. And so with this 18th overall pick, the Carolina Panthers select Jeremy Hill, running back. So this was not a very strong draft class for running backs in the sense of history, but the Panthers wanted to get back to that dual running back system. Christine Michael is a 68 overall. He's weaker. So a running back was definitely a position of need for the Carolina Panthers. Next up, we have the Tennessee Titans. Now, the Titans did make the playoffs. They were the third seed in the AFC. Tavares Jackson was the quarterback who led them throughout the season. They have Greg Jennings, who's kind of fighting Calvin Johnson Jr. for being the best receiver in the league. I guess you could say Mike Wallace kind of really earned his way there as well this past season with the Cardinals. But a lot of gaps here, and so with the 19th overall pick, the Tennessee Titans select strong safety, I think it was Deion Buchanan. So they end up going for a defensive option, the first actual safety off the board. We got two, was it two cornerbacks? Yeah, two cornerbacks already off the board. And so the first safety, they do have Patrick Chung, but when they were looking at kind of where they need to upgrade, they have LaRon Landry at free safety. And so now they bring in a strong safety who probably will be a better future option for them, just adding to that defensive back core that really needs to work and really needs to improve and be more solid. So I think it was also kind of a best player available pick because Buchanan just kept hanging out there for a while, and I figured he needs to be picked at some point, and the Titans were sort of the best team for him to land. Next, we've got the San Diego Chargers. So this is interesting because they have Aaron Rodgers, who is in his 30s now. He just turned 30. He X Factor, 96 overall, but they have failed to ever make the Super Bowl. They've got a lot of weapons out there. They got Santonio Holmes. They just signed Jeremy Maclin. They got Arian Foster, free agency last year. Pretty decent O-line. I mean, like Riley Reif and Chris Snee they just signed. They got Rob Sims at center. They've got TJ Lang at right tackle. Vilma on defense with Chris Houston, Jamie Collins. So let's see where the San Diego Chargers go with the 20th overall pick. And they go with linebacker C.J. Mosley. So even though they have Jonathan Vilma, they do want to get younger in the linebacking position. This is where Vilma is 32 years old, and the person behind him is Miles Burris at 66 overall and 26 age. So adding C.J. Mosley, we know in real life with the Baltimore Ravens, he was a very solid linebacker for many years. This gives them a staple at linebacker. And typically my franchise, there are very few good linebackers. So if you're able to land a linebacker, that's who you're wanting to kind of anchor your team for many years. And someone like C.J. Mosley was too good to pass up. So Chargers pick the first middle linebacker off the board. And now we got the 49ers, kind of in a similar situation where they've got a pretty good front seven. They've got Everett Brown, Haloti Ngata, Cameron Hayward. DBs, they've got Ashton Yabuti, who was like a second-round pick in real life, and the second-round pick, that's where he went in the draft, but he never became anything. But in my franchise, he's a 90 overall. They've got Prince Amukamura, they've got Brent Grimes, they've got in safety Brandon Merriweather. They could use some safety help. They got Roman Harper, 71 overall. And then on offense, they're sticking with Drew Brees, who's 79 overall, starting to kind of decline a bit at 35 years old. They've got Maurice Jones-Drew, Dion Lewis, Des Bryant, Alshon Jeffrey. But with the 21st overall pick, the San Francisco 49ers select Ryan Shazier, linebacker. So in real life, he went to Pittsburgh. We know he had a very good career up until he had that gruesome injury. But hey, there's no telling that he won't have a longer career here in this alternative reality. And this time it's with the San Francisco 49ers. This is I think a great landing spot for him. Good solid pick. They have Mason Foster at middle linebacker currently. Like a 72 overall, 25 years old. But someone like Ryan Shazier is someone that really will elevate the San Francisco linebacking core, especially since their division has the Super Bowl champions, Arizona Cardinals. Then we've got the Minnesota Vikings. I mentioned before, they've got the Man of the Year. They got the MVP, Robert Griffin III. They got Doug Baldwin, Adam Thielen, Harry Douglas, Rob Gronkowski, Doug Martin. So let's see who they go with the 22nd overall pick. And with the selection, the Vikings go with Brandon Cooks. So even though they have Doug Baldwin, 83 overall, and Adam Thielen, 75, going with Brandon Cooks gives them that great slot receiver. Someone who could be a very solid player for them moving into the future. Another weapon for Robert Griffin III. You got 23-year-old Adam Thielen, 25-year-old Doug Baldwin, 29-year-old Harry Douglas. So they've got another playmaker for this Minnesota team. Now, ahead of them somehow was the Chicago Bears. They were the 5th seed. Also lost the wild card round. The Vikings lost to the Lions. The Bears lost to the Eagles. But with this team, there's a lot of odd. They have a 31-year-old Jay Cutler and a 32-year-old Jason Campbell. But Campbell at 70 overall got them to the playoffs. So they're still a playoff team. They've got Eddie Royal. They just signed Victor Cruz. They have Mark Ingram. They have a decent defense, but they just don't play as well as you'd expect the legendary Bears to have played defense. So with the 23rd overall pick, the Bears select Kelvin Benjamin. So they don't go to help their defense. They go to give a playmaker to Jason Campbell. So Kelvin Benjamin, a 6'5" wide receiver. They are trying to get a younger receiving core. They also only have 4 wide receivers on their roster. So after Eddie Royal and Cruz, they've got Tandon Doss and Darius Johnson, both 63 and 55 overall. So they bring in the big man, wide receiver, Kelvin Benjamin. Then we get the New York Jets. Then this is the star-studded Jets, led by Chip Kelly. You got Alex Smith, 97 overall. Percy Harvin, his main pass catcher. They also got Antonio Brown signed in free agency. They have Jarius Wright. They've got Wes Welker, Clinton Portis, who Portis now is getting much older. He's 33 years old, 82 overall. Star Dev is probably the LaDainian Tomlinson of my franchise. Mercedes Lewis. They've got some gaps on offensive line, though, that they need to kind of fill. Defensively, they've got some unique prospects. Matthias Kiwanuka, Ndamukong Suh, Michael Kendricks, D. Milner. So with this pick, though, the 24th overall selection, the Bears are going with Darqueze Dennard. So they have some gaps on their defensive back core. They have, I mentioned D. Milner. But they also have Mike Jenkins, who's 74 overall, and then they go down to the upper 60s with Jonathan Nelson and Greg Reed. So adding Dennard adds to their defensive back core. You can never have too many defensive backs. They were the 32nd ranked defense in the league, which is pretty bad. And then they had the 31st ranked pass defense, allowing 241.1 yards a game. So they really needed to help their defensive backs, and they add Dennard. Then you have the former Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. They are still riding with a 86 overall Donovan McNabb, 37 years old. He has maintained his superstar status. He is a man to watch out for, but he is old. They do have Giovanni Bernard from last year. They were their rookie last year. Then they have Deshaun Jackson, Ted Ginn, and Travis Benjamin. 3 receivers who have 98 speed. They are a fast team. They punch hard. They have Heath Miller. They got starting to age offensive line. They still got some gaps there they need to work on. Michael Ruse is their best guy at right tackle. Marcus McNeil left tackle. Their defense, they got Ray Maluga, KJ Wright, Melvin Ingram, 3 linebackers, all over 80 overall. They have Earl Thomas III. He's been an anchor for them and this team. Stephon Gilmore, Leotis McKelvin, Nickel Roby Coleman, who's 69 overall. So pretty solid team. But with this 25th overall pick, Andy Reid and the Philadelphia Eagles select Teddy Bridgewater. So they go with the quarterback. Now, again, I think Eagles fans, if they're trying to contend for the Super Bowl, this wasn't the best pick, but this was the best pick if you want to maintain some stability at quarterback with the potential retirement of Donovan McNabb. So long as Donovan McNabb is playing, it looks like this team is probably going to be a Super Bowl contender. But once he's gone, what happens to this team? So we need to see, Case Keenum is not going to be the answer. So maybe Teddy Bridgewater will be. So he will be the backup this year behind Donovan McNabb as they move into this 2014-2015 season. Then we got the Sam Bradford and Doug Marrone, Denver Broncos. They've got Ahmad Bradshaw, 87 overall. They got Monty Ball last year. They have A.J. Green, Mohamed Sanu. They signed Malcolm Kelly, the big man receiver. Zach Ertz, a receiver or a tight end last year. They've got DeBrickashaw Ferguson, 91 overall left tackle, one of the best in the league. They signed Josh Sitton at left guard. And then on defense, they have Luke Kuechly as their all-star middle linebacker. And then like Brandon Graham, Cameron Wake. They don't have as many superstars on this defense, but Luke Kuechly is kind of the anchor for the Broncos. But with this 26th overall pick, the Denver Broncos select Jason Verrett, the cornerback. Definitely needs some help there. Because again, right now they are currently with Nolan Carroll II at 78 overall, Richard Marshall 77 overall, Davin House 75, Sharice Wright 75, and Brandon Gee 73. They got some later 60s. They're all about 25 or like some are 27, 29 years old, but they really need to get a star there as their shutdown corner. They're going to hope that's going to be Verrett, but we'll have to find out. Then we've got the Atlanta Falcons. Peyton Manning still in the league. He is still fighting for a Super Bowl in the NFC. He's won 2 with the Indianapolis Colts in my franchise. They do have Le'Veon Bell. They've got Robert Meacham, Braylon Edwards, Emmanuel Sanders signed, but they lost Larry Fitzgerald. They've got Julius Thomas at tight end, Brandon Myers, Nate Soldier at left tackle. Defensively, they are the number 1 defense, and that's surprising to me because they don't look like their number 1 defense. But they have it. Bob Sanders. They have Cam Chancellor, Rashad Jones at safety. They've got Antonio Cromartie. But with this 27th overall pick, the Atlanta Falcons select Rashid Hageman. He is going to be a decent run stopper for them. Right now they got Gerald Worthy. They have Earl Mitchell, Jesse Williams, all 76 overall and below. Jabal Sheard, Cliff Averill on the pass rushers. But now they get their run stopper, and I think that's a good solid pick for the Atlanta Falcons, who although have the number 1 ranked defense, they're like a 75 overall defense. Their overall is not great. I'm surprised they're number 1 in defense. But they were number 2 in offense. So I guess as long as their offense can keep producing at this level with Manning, they might be all right. But now moving to the Miami Dolphins, who were the number 1 team in the AFC. They were power ranked number 1. They're boasting with Cam Newton. They have Matt Forte, Calvin Johnson Jr., Jordy Nelson, Michael Jenkins, Tyler Eifert. A pretty solid O-line with you got Trent Williams at left tackle, Jeremy Trueblood right tackle. Could use some help on the interior line. Carl Nix being their only real guy on the inside. Defensively, they got James Laurinaitis. They lost some linebackers here in free agency. They got Mike Patterson, Pernell McPhee, Bruce Irvin, Jabril Wilson at strong safety coming to help them out. But with this pick, 28th overall, the Dolphins want to improve as they draft a linebacker, Atochu. So Atochu there, as I mentioned, they lost 2 of their linebackers, Bobby Carpenter. They lost Thomas Howard. So they want to pair another linebacker with James Laurinaitis. And Atochu is going to be the hope there at outside linebacker to help this Miami Dolphins defense. Then you got the Pittsburgh Steelers, who were 7-10. They were pretty low ranked in the AFC. However, they won the AFC North. Let's see, I think they were ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They were the 10th team in the AFC, but they had the 4th seed and fought their way to the AFC Championship game, only losing to the Raiders. Now, this is a team that has a lot of talent. I'm surprised they struggled last year. They've got Ben Roethlisberger, aging, but 84 overall. You've got Lamar Miller. You've got tight ends like Delaney Walker, 88 overall. Jared Cook, 80. Keenan Allen, Michael Floyd. They did have Emmanuel Sanders. Now he's gone, but they have Aaron Dobson. They probably could use a wide receiver at some point. They got Ryan Clady at left tackle, Eric Winston at right tackle. Paul McQuistion from Cleveland now is their right guard. Jeff Allen, left guard. Doug Dadish, center. Defensively, they're loaded, and they were only the 24th ranked defense. They have Dante Whitner, 97 overall, best safety in the league. They've got Deshaun Goldson, 82 overall. David Jones, Orlando Scandrick, Josh Norman at corner. J.J. Watt, Sharif Floyd, Elvis Dumerville at pass rusher. They've got DJ Williams. They lost Brandon Spikes at middle linebacker, which hurt them. But they signed Cameron Wimbley from Cleveland as an outside linebacker. That's a good addition for them. So they got some holes here to fill, but they're still a pretty solid unit. And with the 29th pick, the Steelers select Kyle Van Noy, so another linebacker. As I mentioned, linebackers are a rare commodity, so you want to get as many linebackers as you can to stay solid, especially with injuries. And Kyle Van Noy wasn't really my first hope for Pittsburgh. I was hoping they could possibly have gotten Shazier or Mosley or Atochu, but when you're picking number 29, you got to take what you can get. There weren't a lot of good linebackers later, so they took what was given to them, and so Kyle Van Noy is a Pittsburgh Steeler. Then the team that defied all odds this year, going 1-5, and then 11-6 as their ending, so they basically went 10-1 the rest of the season, somehow beating the Atlanta Falcons, beating the who do they go? Oh, the Minnesota Vikings, making their way from the third seed of the playoffs all the way to the championship game, losing to the Arizona Cardinals, who won the Super Bowl. This was with Ryan Tannehill, Reggie Bush, Jason Hill, Mario Manningham, Darius Hayward-Bay now joining them, Todd Heap. They have Tyrone Smith at left tackle. Some holes on their O-line there, but they filled one with Shane Olivier, the best right tackle in the league coming from Cleveland, Mike Iupati. We've got Justin Blaylock. Defensively, they're anchored by a middle linebacker with Stanley Arnaud. They have Lawrence Timmons, the best left outside linebacker in the league, between him and Clay Matthews and some of these top tier people, DeMarcus Ware. But they've got Deion Jordan and Daquan Bowers at the two ends, and they have Kyle Williams at defensive tackle, Casey Hayward, Brandon Carr, corner. They've got Eric Reed at free safety. They had some challenge there at strong safety. That's a big need of theirs. But with that 30th overall pick, the Lions go with Ward. His first name is slipping my mind. It was Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward, of course, Jimmy Ward. And so they go with the strong safety, which they desperately needed. They only have Jermail Hines. They did sign Ed Reed, but we'll see if he actually makes the roster. But the Lions pull up probably a better safety than Deion Buchanan. I think Jimmy Ward's going to be a really good star for them in Detroit. Very perfect pick for them. This is the Rob Ryan, is the head coach of the Lions, picking Ward for his defense. Then you got the Hugh Jackson Oakland Raiders. They got Matt Ryan, one of the best quarterbacks in the league, Julio Jones as well. They have Robert Woods. They signed Eric Decker, Andre Holmes. They kind of lost Craig Davis. They lost some of their receiving power. They do have Vernon Davis, the old man. They traded away Donald Penn. Now they have Terran Armstead, the 23-year-old, 80 overall left tackle. Brian Beluga. They got Cannon as well. So they got some options here on this offense. Defensively, they're anchored by Brian Cushing, cornerback Joe Hayden, and Morris Claiborne. Really two good corners. Hayden had some really big plays in both the Super Bowl and the championship game. But they also are lacking some areas. They got Tyson Jackson they just signed, but they could use some help on the front and defensive front there. But with the 31st overall pick, the Oakland Raiders select Xavier Suafilo. So this is to help their interior line. Their best right guard is Julian Vandervelde, 67 overall, and then Eric Wood left guard, 78 overall. And then they don't have a center at all, so no center. They have a lot of work to do. Eric Wood's 28 years old. So they need some help there, and so that interior line is brushed up with Xavier Su'a-Filo. And then we got the Super Bowl champions, led by the first-year head coach John DeFilippo, Andy Dalton at quarterback. They have Mike Wallace, who had a stupendous year. He's 85 overall, superstar, deep threat. Chris Givens, the other receiver. They did have a retirement. They had Dallas Clark at tight end, but they were able to sign the Patriots tight end Leonard Pope, who's a 76 overall, 6'8", a really good tight end for them. They do have some help left tackle, or some challenges. Left tackle is a 67 overall. They have a left guard, Matt Slauson, they just signed. They do have Nick Mangold, probably the best center in the league. Logan Mankins, the best right guard in the league. King Dunlap at right tackle. Defensively, they have some stars like Darius Slay, Richard Sherman. I thought it was interesting that this was the year the Seattle Seahawks won the Super Bowl. So same year Richard Sherman won the Super Bowl. But this time he won it with the Cardinals in my franchise. They've got Darius Butler, Tyrann Mathieu, Harrison Smith, Zach Diosi at middle linebacker, Navarro Bowman, David Harris, pass rushers Justin Smith, Marcel Darius, Jared Allen. And so with the 32nd overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals select Cyrus Kungio. I think it's Kungio. He's the left tackle. That's going to be their anchor since they need a left tackle. They got him in the draft. So the Arizona Cardinals get a positional need to end the first round. So this is already a very long video, so I'm going to end it here, and I will have another video coming out with a breakdown of each NFL team and what their draft was in the next video. But if you like this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more about this series. I really enjoy recreating the league, and here we are entering year 13. So keep on following if you're interested in seeing how this alternate reality pans out. So thanks for watching, and I'll stay tuned for the next video on the draft.